For the first time, Coronation Street has tackled the usually taboo subject of male rape. The storyline saw one of the soap's main characters, David Platt, drugged and raped by his new friend Josh Tucker. In the coming days and weeks, the show will look in detail at the effect the attack has on him. For Sam Thompson, a 23-year-old DJ, watching the storyline will be intensely personal, reports Manchester Evening News. He has advised the show's writers on it because he was raped by two men after a night out in Manchester in 2016. Waking up in a hotel room, Sam didn't initially realize what was happening to him. Sam was a victim of male rape. Image, PA Real Life, Maximum Music UK. It was only when the physical pain kicked in that the true horror of the situation became apparent. I didn't know if it was a dream or a nightmare, he says. I'd only remember snippets of it, and my memory of the whole ordeal is hazy. It was the way I was in pain that was the biggest indication. When it was over, I got up and left and started walking home to my flat where my girlfriend and friend were waiting for me. When I got back to the flat, I just burst out crying. Sam, then 22, had lived in Manchester just a few weeks when his horrific ordeal unfolded. He had moved to the city from Newark, Nottinghamshire, with his then-girlfriend, to pursue his dream of becoming a professional DJ. Keen to check out the city's nightlife, Sam and his best friend Brady ventured into the city centre and spent the evening exploring different pubs and clubs. Sam assisted producers of Coronation Street with the David Platt storyline. Image, PA Real Life. In a haze of vodka shots, they ended up losing each other. Sam, who had also lost his mobile phone, started chatting to a group of people outside a club. Thinking nothing of it, he accepted an invitation to join around 7 people for another drink. It was now the early hours of morning and Sam followed the crowd. He found himself in a hotel room. Before long, people started to leave. Sam was left alone with just 2 men, who persuaded him to stay for one last drink. We were all drinking and it's a really hazy memory, he says. I think I was having a good laugh. The group fizzled down to just 2 people and me. My memory is hazy, but the next thing I remember is one of them pulling off my trousers. Sam, with his friend Brady, left, who he went out with the night he was raped. Image, PA Real Life. What followed was an ordeal which lasted hours, in which Sam says the 2 men took it in turns to rape him. At the time, Sam could not explain why he didn't fight back. He has since been told by a therapist that people respond to trauma in different ways and the fight, flight or freeze response kicks in. He remembers leaving the hotel at around 8 a.m. after the men had finished. He walked out onto the street with no understanding of where he was in his new city. After finding his bearings, he staggered towards his home in a daze. At that point, he was unable to comprehend the enormity of what had just happened. It was weird, difficult to describe. I was in shock and I don't think it had really hit me. It sounds strange, but I went into Morrison's and bought a drink. It was only when I got near home that it all hit me and the panic and frustration kicked in. I had feelings of not wanting to live with this, he said. Sam assisted with the David Platt storyline. Image, ITV. When he got back to his flat, he found his girlfriend and best mate Brady waiting for him, worried about where he had been. At that point, he just came out with it and told them the unthinkable: he'd been raped. I just burst into tears, he says. They didn't know how to react. Brady put his arm around me and my girlfriend just broke down in tears. I just hadn't expected this to happen. I just wanted to have a shower, but they told me to go to the police. My girlfriend went to call my mum and I asked her to tell her because I couldn't bear to tell my mum what had happened. She put my mum on loudspeaker and she was the voice of reason. She said, "You need to report it now." As the 3 friends made their way to the nearest police station, his girlfriend managed to intercept 2 PCSOs, who advised them to make a statement. At the station, Sam says the wait to make his official statement felt like an eternity. Injuries to his arms were photographed and he was asked to give details of what he could remember to a specially trained officer. He says he was also asked questions about his sexuality and if the complaint was genuine. The storyline on Corrie has been a subject of much debate. Image, ITV. It wasn't an easy experience, he says. I was talking to a woman I had not met. I think I would have found it easier to talk to a man, to be honest. I had not slept at all. It was like I was being questioned for a crime. I had never heard of this happening to a straight man. I felt like they didn't believe me. It created so much more stress. I felt like they were saying I must be gay and making it up because I was keeping being gay secret. Sam now realizes that the questions he was asked were necessary for the police investigation, but he found it a harrowing experience. He was taken home by a police officer and told not to shower or change his clothes until his appointment at the sexual assault referral center at 10 p.m. that night. David Platt is raped in the shocking Corrie storyline. Image, ITV. Exhausted after his ordeal, he managed to sleep only briefly before the forensic examination, where he was internally examined, given blood tests and advice on newly transmitted diseases. I still smelt of these two people. I just wanted to shower, he says. It was a horrible experience, but I can't fault the people who took the samples. It was not a nice ordeal to go through, and being given things like HIV advice is horrible, but at that point I had already made a report. I don't like to say to other people in my situation, you must report it to the police. In an ideal situation, we would all go and report straight away. If you have got it in you, go and do it, and they will get the evidence they need should it go to court. But I know speaking to the police can be an extra ordeal. Desperate to leave Manchester, Sam was driven home that night to Newark, where he spent the next month days in front of the TV. That first weekend it was horrible for me and for my family and anyone else around me, he says. I couldn't be left alone in the house because I would cry and scream. I just couldn't be left on my own. I couldn't walk more than 2 or 3 meters from the house to smoke. I was a completely different person. My mom says, you could see it was you, but there was no one behind the eyes. Sam with his friend Clarice, in August last year. Image, PA Real Life. I spent a month sat in front of the television. I couldn't sleep, and if I did sleep I would have night terrors. There was a moment when I lost control and chucked tables and chairs around, so I agreed to go to the GP. I was given antidepressants and I refused to take them, so I chucked them in the bin. The diazepam and sleeping tablets I took to help me sleep. It took several weeks before Sam felt strong enough to DJ at a local event which he attended with his brother. That was the turning point he needed, and from that moment on, he knew he could not let the attack ruin his life. I decided I was not going to let it beat me, he says. My attitude was that I was not going to let them win. With me sat in the house doing nothing else, they were continually beating me. Now I've had therapy, I know it's about control and power. When you've been raped, someone has taken away your power and control. Sam was asked about his sexuality when he told the police he was raped. Image, men. Sam returned to Manchester, started DJing again, got a job as a recruitment consultant, and made himself so busy I didn't have to think about it. But avoiding the issue just made the problem worse, and Sam's relationship became a casualty of what happened to him. Having lost interest in and finding it difficult even to kiss another person, his relationship ended in January 2017. Not long after, he was told by police that the case had been dropped against 2 men who had been arrested in connection with his rape. He was told that it would be difficult to prove he had not consented to what had happened. Initially, it was a major knockback, he says. I was adamant the police didn't believe me, and that was the problem. But in June last year I met with the officer who handled my case and I realized that was not true. Sam thought the police did not believe him. Image, men. Shortly afterwards, however, Sam suffered a breakdown and was advised by the specialist officer who had handled his case to contact Survivors Manchester. The organization works exclusively with male victims of rape and UAL abuse, supporting them through counseling and peer-to-peer support. After admitting he needed help, Sam had counseling and has since become a survivor's ambassador, even working with Coronation Street as a script advisor on the upcoming David Platt storyline. He is now keen to make sure that other men in the same situation know they are not alone, something Sam didn't realize after his own attack. Coronation Street has a massive voice and people have a connection to David Platt, he says. The storyline breaks down myths about male rape and explores what happens afterwards. Rape is nothing to do with consent. Because of the act of rape, there's a lot of confusion and people don't understand what it is and that it can happen to anyone. Some men get an erection or can ejaculate while being raped, but it's not a pleasure thing. They're not enjoying it, it's just that certain glands are being touched. That can be very difficult for someone to understand. What happened to me even made me question my sexuality. I have always been straight, but the way the police questioned me made me feel like I had to question myself. When you've been raped, someone has taken away your power and control, says Sam. Image, Men. Sam says therapy sessions and his work with survivors has helped him to understand his experience properly. His story is now used by the charity to help train GMP officers, so they know how to deal with victims. Sam has refused to let the experience shape his life. He now lives back in Newark, still DJs and is studying for exams, in the hope of going to university in September to study law. The best advice is to try and remember you are not alone with this, he says. For me, the worst thing was thinking it didn't happen to other men. It's about talking. If you talk to friends, family, professionals, police, anyone, it helps. And if you can't say the words, then write them down or put them in a text. It took Sam weeks to have the courage to DJ again. Image, PA. Real life. The moment you stop trying to keep it in is when you stop feeling alone. It helps you accept this has happened. It's not the end of your life. There was a point last year when I wanted to turn it around. I couldn't really care that much about how people see me. The big thing for me was how I felt and not realizing it happened to other men. If I could help other people to find their voice, I could help. Duncan Craig is the founder and chief executive of Survivors Manchester. Image, Men. Detective Inspectors Ed Alley, of Greater Manchester Police, said, I can't commend Mr. Thompson enough for his immense fortitude in raising awareness of this horrendous crime and also highlighting the importance of seeking specialist support. Rape is a force priority for Greater Manchester Police, and we are aware of the stigma and sensitivities faced by male rape victims. We have specially trained officers to deal with victims of this crime and work closely with our partners such as Survivors Manchester to ensure the essential support is readily available. I would urge everyone to keep safe by remaining with friends when on a night out and ensure you and your friends return home safely together. Don't accept a drink from a stranger and do keep an eye on your own drink to ensure it has not been tampered with.